All right, we're live. Hello, I'm Keith F. Shovlin, publisher and chief creative of AS21 Publishing, here for the monthly Ask AS21 on the 21st live webcast. I'm here to answer any questions you have about publishing, writing, editing, marketing of books. Anything you want to ask, go ahead. Sorry for a delay in getting started today. We are in our brand new office outside. I'm down in Lorton, Virginia, and the paint's is fresh on the wall, and the sign didn't want to stay up at first, but it's up now. So we're broadcasting both on YouTube and Periscope. I'm good, Frame Dog. Thanks for asking. How are you today? So feel free to send in any questions you have. You can do it either on the Periscope app, or you can do it on YouTube, or you could tweet to us. Oh, you're welcome. You could tweet to us with the hashtag AskAS21, and I'll be checking Twitter throughout. So any questions you might have, feel free to share. Start out the discussion tonight. Yeah, I'm in Lorton. Now our main now of course that's our offices. But we are officially registered out of Mount Vernon, Virginia. But we just moved down here to Lorton in our new office. We haven't got completely set up yet, but we're working on it. So now this is a interesting day. We always do these events on the 21st because we are AS21. But it's a little bit special for me today because this is the 14th anniversary of me moving down to Washington, D.C. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, lived there for the first 20 years of my life, and then moved down here to go to college and haven't left since. Uh, so it's just so many things that interesting that came along. Well, you just happened to see my ring there. I mean, I wasn't really trying to show it, but thank you for your concern. Uh, so I moved down here, and so many things happened because of my move down here. So many friendships I made, so many of the stories I've been able to tell. And my first book, Post Soliloquy, was built off of my experiences as a postgraduate here in the DC area. And so many of the people that I've met and worked with have been because of the connections I made here in DC, as well as some of the ones I made back home in Pittsburgh. We have several of the authors and staff of AS21 I went to school with at American University, as well as I have friends from back home that have back home in Pittsburgh that helped out. Joshua Morgan being one of my best friends from growing up back in Pittsburgh with his children's book Pockets. He and I have stayed in contact all these years. He was one of the original supporters for AS21 when we did our first Kickstarter campaign back in 2014. Was that long ago? Yeah, 2014. And he supported us then, and then he came to us when he had decided he wanted to work on a children's book. So it's just always interesting how your life changes, but what kind of stories you're able to tell after you do a move. And now it wasn't that big of a move coming down here to DC from Pittsburgh. Sure, it was a 5-hour drive, but you're going and there it's the mid-Atlantic area versus Pittsburgh is technically on the edge of the Midwest, but it's not really that stretch. Part of a stretch. I mean, I have friends like staff members like our chief, all right, our creative adjacent for AS21, Adam Wallach, has moved around from Rhode Island to DC to Chicago to Las Vegas now. So he's been all over the country. One of our creatives, Eileen Vega, was raised in Las Vegas and moved out here to DC. But then, of course, we have other ones that have made the same move as me, like Bianca Palmisano, one of our creatives, who was also from Pittsburgh and moved down here to DC. Then you have one of our creatives, Ian Roberts. He was born in London, then grew up in Chicago, and now has moved here to DC. And all of them have found inspiration for writing their stories in both their home areas and also in the DC area. In the case of Ian Roberts, writing the political thriller Nos Populus about a American expat living over in the UK and then coming back to try to fight back against the overreach of a corrupt American government. Then going from there, I mean, obviously he had good background from both areas, and it's these stories that inspire us and help us become better writers, help us become better at dealing with people, get us. I mean, when you move and you change your area, change it to where there's no one around you that you know, it forces you to learn more, to reach out more, to get more involved in order to make your own new community, because you're not going to be able to rely on your friends back home to keep in contact with. So that's all becomes fertile ground for anyone that's a writer, anyone that's interested in getting into the book industry in any way. The community that you build heavily influences the way you are. Obviously, if you're an editor, it's all in what kind of training you get, what style book you work off of. If you're a writer, it's all those experiences that go into making great stories. So it's just something that I'm having on my mind today as I consider look at now 14 years living in the Washington, D.C. metro area. So, okay, so we have no questions currently coming in on the YouTube. We only a couple people talking on Periscope. It seemed that if I kind of seem to stop while I'm talking, it's because maybe something's coming up on Periscope, maybe something's coming up on YouTube, maybe I'm stopping to look at Twitter. Yeah, let's see. Everything's posted on there. And so yeah, we did a blast on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, so people know that we're on. Of course, we do this every month. Sometimes we get more questions than others. I always try to have a good topic to talk about to help bit with inspiration. I So like if you're a writer out there and you're stuck on story ideas, stuck on what you want to write about, you have an idea for a story inside you, but you're not quite sure how to get it out. Now, I'm not saying that you should move, because that is very costly change, especially something that you might, if you're thinking about doing just feed the beast, as it were, as a writer, that's not the best option. But if you want to seek new ideas and you seek new experiences, you travel and see more of the world, meet more people, see how other people live, how other cultures operate. Right now, you have the airing on NBC, the closing ceremonies of the 2016 Olympic Games, the 31st Summer Olympiad in Rio de Janeiro. And thinking back 6 years ago today, I was in Buenos Aires landed there. First time ever I was in Argentina. I had spent the previous week in Chile, I was actually studying for a week at the Universidad de Chile, and while I was working on my MBA, and just getting to meet all kinds of different people that I don't speak any Spanish. I studied French in high school and college. So it was just an experience of getting into the language and getting into the culture was incredible. So even having immersive experiences, being by myself at certain times, not just with the group, but also just trying to adapt for that week I was in Chile, and then the following weekend in Buenos Aires, where we were in Buenos Aires, it was more free throwing. So obviously there's a lot of experiences there that could help you when you're writing a story, things that you can learn from, things that you can see how other people are. Even if you end up going on a trip somewhere far away and you just meet somebody that's from the United States. I mean, that frequently happens where tourists run into other tourists and may end up, you travel thousands of miles to meet somebody that may live just a couple miles away from you do. But in meeting that person, you get to learn about their experiences and get possibly more inspiration. And as they say, you could find anyone could be your muse. So that a person, you can travel and find a person to be your muse, or just find a location to be your muse. Like I said, moving down here to DC has been a tremendous muse to me as far as just all the different stories that are possible. In the Washington, D.C. area, you've got, just in the city of Washington, you have 675,000 people. When you expand that to the Maryland suburbs, the Virginia suburbs, up to Baltimore, you're talking 3 million people. That's a lot of stories. That's a lot of different people, a lot of different takes on the area. People that hate the area, people that love the area, people that have only lived in DC their whole life, or people who have just moved here. You've got schools starting next week at the major universities. So you've got new incoming freshmen at Georgetown, George Washington, American University, Howard, Catholic, like you name it, all the local universities here in DC. You get new blood coming in, new stories, new experiences, new opportunities. So as a writer, embrace those opportunities, embrace those experiences, because you never know what you may find, what may influence you and help make you a better writer, help make your story better, help make you better understand the world we live in. So that's my main takeaway for this month's episode, is to just embrace change, become the change, become the experience. You know what you, if you have a story in you, you know what to write, but you have not the idea on how to do it or how to get started. Well, start by making a change in your routine, or just, I mean, if you're staring at a blank computer screen, then make a simple change. Type a letter. That's a change. Embrace the change. Just start writing. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Just start writing. Embrace the change. Break the streak of not writing. Jerry Seinfeld likes to say, as a best way, I mean, he's been writing jokes for, how long ago was his show on? 20 years ago now. So 25, 30 years he's been an active comedian, even longer than that. He likes to say, get a calendar and put an X on a day. If you did writing that day, put an X on the day. Then the next day, keep going, put another X. Next day, put an X. And then once you get 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days in a row, you make a chain. Keep writing, then don't break the chain. Make those X's. So get a nice wall calendar where you can have the entire year out in one, not those monthly calendar. So you could get that nice stretch of black or red or whatever color X's or check marks or circles or whatever, but make a chain and then keep it in your mind to keep writing, keep moving forward in your story. Even if you're not moving forward, if you're writing notes, if you're writing background material, if you're writing, that's of course, if you're writing a story like nonfiction or fiction, if you're writing poetry, getting more poetry out there. The idea is to just keep writing, because the experience of writing is incredibly fulfilling, but also it helps. I mean, it's an extreme creativity, embodiment of creativity, and it gets your mind working, and it gets you thinking, it gets you being creative, it gets your juices flowing, and then you create something. You create a poem, poetry, a short story, an essay, a book. All you have to do is make the change, start typing, start writing. If you prefer to write by hand, write by hand. My hands cramp up too much. I got to type. My brain can't process fast enough for me to write it down. So I got to type, and even then's not enough. So get a voice recorder, get a tape recorder, use your phone. It's a voice recorder, so apps for that. And all of a sudden put that. If you have a clear voice that your computer can understand, I'm not so lucky in that respect, then get software that can understand your voice and type what you say. Then you can speak your story. That may not be the best for certain structure and flow, but at least you get your story down, and then a good editor can help you make it better. But the key thing is to get writing, to get that story together. And then once you have a few chapters done, a few pages done, maybe you have it completely done, then you worry about doing editing. Then you worry about, does my story make sense? Go back and check the structure. And of course, you need to be your own worst critic. But you have to understand that being your own worst critic doesn't mean what you've written, what you've worked so hard on, doesn't mean automatically that, well, obviously it must suck. Because it probably doesn't suck. You probably, well, almost every writer I know is at least a bit masochistic, always very hard on themselves, always wanting to beat themselves up. So, oh, it's so hard to pick down a favorite book. Uh, let's go. I'll go with 1984 by George Orwell. Read that Christmas break, senior year of high school, and it just opened up my mind to wanting to soak in knowledge as much as possible. And right after reading it, I picked up a book called Teaching Democracy by Professor John Minahan at Brown University. And then from there, just snowballed into reading all these great books that inspire me, like Cultural Literacy by E.D. Hirsch, The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, Communist Manifesto by Karl, Karl Marx, and just getting all kinds of different viewpoints and everything. But starting with 1984 and seeing a society where basically reading was, well, obviously in Fahrenheit 451, reading is completely out, but there's such misinformation in 1984. There's such, and you could see it, the possibility, even more so today, the possibility for a whole populace to be misled, to believe facts that are in no way facts. Ah, thank you for the applause, if that is applause, I'm guessing. I'm sorry, I'm not too quick on reading emoji. So, but what's your favorite book? You would ask me my favorite. What's your favorite book? Feel free. Although people on Periscope will see what you say, I'll repeat it for the people watching on YouTube. Okay. Well, I'll wait your answer and move on. Let's go check Twitter again. Let's see what's going on there. Nothing popping up in the notifications. And of course, you could tweet to us with the hashtag AskAce21. And you could do that anytime, not just that. I don't know it is hard. I know that take me for a second to think about. But just think of the last book that you really enjoyed. I it doesn't even have to be your favorite book. The last book that you picked up and you were sad when it was over, when you wanted to read it again. I mean that may not necessarily be your favorite book. I mean, I finished the Magician series by Lev Grossman. Ah, 2 years ago now. Oh, the Hardy Boy books are great, wonderful series. Ah, I remember reading a couple of the Boxcar Kids books when I was a kid, and although several of the Roald Dahl ones. No, is it Ralph S. Mouse? Sure. Uh-huh. Yeah. So I love a good book series. Like with Lev Grossman, I was able to get into the Magicians and then move right through books 2 and 3 of his Magician series, and watch some of the TV show on the Sci-Fi channel or Sci-Fi, depending on how you pronounce it. And of course, the show was a big departure from the books. But then, of course, I remember one summer I read the Star Trek New Frontier series, and then I'm currently reading to my children. We're going through the Narnia books. We're currently reading The Silver Chair. That may have been the book we were reading when I was on last month. So it takes a while. Well, for the most part, over the past month, my kids have been on vacation, so I haven't done a lot of reading to them over that time. But so we're working through the Narnia books, and growing up, I only got as far as Prince Caspian, reading the Narnia books back in school. So it was interesting. I had seen the movie Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but then going and reading the book, and the book is so much better than the movie. Although the young actor Will Poulter, who they got to play Eustace Scrubb, was fantastic in the movie. It's just they messed so much with the story that It was just insane. But and then of course now they're talking about making silver chair, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's just so interesting going back and reading those books now that I'm older, because I remember reading Prince Caspian. That was Mr. Kissick's class in 7th grade. Yeah, 7th grade English class. 1994, 95? Yeah. Wow, that was a long time ago. 1994, 95, 22 years ago that I read Prince Caspian. And now I've read it with my two young daughters. So, and that's another great thing about a good story. I mean, if you love it, you can then share it with your children or friends or other family, and not necessarily just children. No pressure on having children. That's a big decision. But you can share those stories with people, not just your own stories, but the stories you read and you enjoyed. So I know you're no longer still on Periscope, but thank you very much for asking about favorite book, because I like to be able to tell that story about how it kind of unlocked. I mean, I had done reading. I had read over the summers. Before that point, I had read like Common Sense by Thomas Paine. I had read uh, Alexei de Tocqueville's Democracy in America. I read a few things here and there, but that really pushed me to read a lot more. And of course, yes, I said I read Communist Manifesto, but that's one side of the political spectrum. Then I read Mein Kampf, but then I read Utopia by Thomas More. So I got a pretty good mix. Of course, made the mistake of buying at the bookstore the same day, buying Communist Manifesto and Mein Kampf. And I got some weird looks from the checkout person at Walden Books that day. But really, if you really know your stuff, you know that those are two opposite ends of the political spectrum. So if I'm buying both of those books, I'm either bipolar or I'm reading it for enjoyment and not as a political philosophy. But I mean, I'm back mad at myself how little I read sometimes, but I'm reading the newspaper. I read things online all the time, but really getting into books, it's been tough. Currently, I've got about 4 different books I'm in the middle of reading that I just pick up and set down from time to time. There's Stand on Zanzibar by John Brunner. There's America's Darkest Day by Anthony S. Pitch, about the burning of Washington, followed by the attack on Baltimore in the War of 1812. There's Trails of Trenzalore, a Doctor Who series of stories. And then, of course, reading The Silver Chair to my small children. So those are the 4 books I'm currently balancing when I pick up and set down as it is. And I've got a pretty comfortable train right now. I should get back into reading Stand on Zanzibar or finish. I think I only have 1 story left in Tales of Trenzalore, so I really should knock that one out. And then, of course, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. That's how I read Amy Poehler's book, Yes, Please. That's how I read the Choose Your Own Autobiography by Neil Patrick Harris. Those are good books, but they're better as audiobooks. And audiobooks have become so popular lately because people don't have time to read. I mean, if you're driving, you can't pull out a book. I've seen people reading a book and driving. It's a bad idea, though. And audiobooks allows you to be able to listen while you drive, while you work out, while you work, period. And you could still soak in those great stories. Now, I mean, it's late summer now. Once we get this office all up and running, we're going to try to have, we'll repaint that. We're going to try to have our own little audio booth set up so that we could start actively producing audiobooks. Because in the society currently, people don't have time to sit down and read full books. So we really need to step it up with audiobooks, giving people the option, more stories out there available. Either having the authors read them or have people that are of clear, concise voice, which means not precisely me, reading these books so we can get them out there to a wider audience, not just, those that have the physical inability to read, whether it be a learning disability or the blindness or any uh, disp- despair in their vision. Audiobooks are a tremendous way to allow people to still be part of the reading, still be able to share the story, because I mean that is the important thing, is sharing the story. Whether you're a writer or a publisher or a marketer, you keep trying to get the story out there. Right? The writer has half of the job in getting the story down on paper or in the electronic file, as it were. Then the publisher has to make sure that editors look over it, make sure it has a good cover design, because, like it or not, people judge a book by its cover. That's just the way life is. And I heard said recently, the older you are, the more you should be okay with you judging a book by its cover. And I think people do it at all ages, so can't really dispute it. So we're running out of time now, but so I'll just point out any way you can get a story out there. If you record it and release it as a podcast, or if you do the audiobook, that's fantastic. Write, record, share your story. Do you prefer to be a spoken word storyteller? Okay, there are some great associations out there that can help you. I know there's the Virginia Storytellers Alliance right here in Virginia that have conferences every year for people to come out and share spoken word stories. Well, getting more people joining. Hello on Periscope. So feel free to send in any questions you have. I'm here to answer any questions on publishing, writing, editing, marketing, basically anything that goes into the book industry. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. You can send them on Periscope. You can send them on YouTube. You can send them on Twitter. Feel free to ask anything. It's not quite an ask me anything, but feel free to ask anything. Just kind of looking over our Twitter feed here. Okay. All right, so wrapping up. We do this every month on the 21st at 8:30 p.m. If you are a self-published author and are interested in getting more help, directly before this webcast, we offer a monthly webinar called Are You Ready to Self-Publish? And that's through the aois21 self-publishing service that we operate. Not only do we have the webinar, but we also have editing, cover design, e-publishing, print layout, and we also just launched having a phone consultation. If you are a self-publisher and just need a bit of advice, we offer that for free now. So you fill out the form, you schedule a time, and I'll do a what marketing strategies do you suggest for marketing and promoting? Well, it all depends on your budget. The easiest thing to do if you have a low budget is to go with social media marketing and word of mouth. And you have friends, you have family, use them, exploit them, do what you can to have them help you get your story out there. A lot of the sales you'll have of your book, if you're on your own, is friends and family. So use that. Don't feel bad about it. I mean, you've gone probably had to do things for friends, help them move, help them with projects, help them, with things. Why couldn't they buy your book? So you start from there, and then you can build social media. And if you have the money to do advertising, then you do that. Uh, find your local independent bookstore. Okay. Do you attend any book events or go to work with your local bookstores? Independent bookstores are always looking to have events, either readings or meet and greets. Hold on, let me just finish posting it. We just partnered with Walls of Books in Washington, D.C., and we're going to be having an event there every month, giving our authors different chances to get out there to the public. And then we have to do the job of, promoting that to be able to get crowds coming out for book launches and poetry readings and various other events. So it's something we'll be working on. But I mean, really, you have to get yourself in front of the audience, and no one is better at selling your book than you are. It's your story. You believe in it. You should be the one. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have have the ability to have people to help you, but really, you should be able to speak to someone and yes, have it in your heart to have the ability to convey to that person why they need your book. Not why they want to read your book, not why they need to read your book, why they need your book, period. Well, it happens. It's just finding your comfort zone. I personally don't like putting myself out there, but here I am doing a webcast online. I don't, I'm really shy, yet I been do an event every month. I do all kinds of things to get myself out there. I break out of my comfort zone. Yeah. Well, what have you yeah. What's your story about? For those on YouTube wondering, a person asking on Periscope on marketing strategies and getting over, getting to a broader audience. So it's an urban fiction. Oh, okay. Do you live in a major city? Drama and erotica. Those are books that sell. I mean, I've seen. We used to have a chain of bookstores in the Maryland suburbs of D.C. called TLJ, the Literary Joint, and they did well selling basically urban fiction, drama, and erotica. So, oh, more power to you. I mean, there's a lot of good options to publish your book out there. Are you doing print publishing or e-publishing or both? Both. Good. Good. Uh, have you looked at what vendors you're interested in? Do you need, I mean, what are you looking for as far as a printer? Do you want do your own print run or do you want a print on demand? Okay. Print on demand. Okay. Have you figured out what service you want to use yet? Okay. Well, we just actually did we have our podcast series, one of our podcast series, Publish Me, just had an episode uh, two, 2 months ago all about print on demand services, where myself and my co host, Paul Dickinson Russell, and our guest, uh, Bianca Palmisano, talked about our own experiences with print on demand. She worked with Create Space. Paul and I have worked with Lulu. Then there's also Ingram Spark. There's smaller presses that you can work with. There's a lot of good options out there. When you go with CreateSpace or Lulu, they come with, I used yours, but they messed me up. Oh, well, at least your book is selling well. Personally, I would recommend just the nature of the market. If you're comfortable with working with Amazon, then CreateSpace is a pretty good print-on-demand service to work with. And they put you right on Amazon, which, love them or hate them, they are the king of the online book industry right now. So pretty much we all have to work with them. Grit our teeth and just work with them. But I've had a lot of success working with Lulu. Okay. Okay. But I've had success with those ones. With Lulu, I published my first book with them. We just did a print run of Hive First Contact, a sci-fi book with Lulu. They now have the book available from there, and we do our own print sales and events. So there's a lot of options out there. I know BookBaby just launched. It does a lot of print on demand, and they just launched their own editing for editing services as well. So increased competition there. And one thing is for certain, there is no dearth of competition for every step of the way on as a self-publisher. You are not don't need to be beholden to one company, because you can go to one company just for editing, one company or one person just for cover design. Oh, fantastic. If you want to ask more, you shoot me an email or tweet me at aois21, and I'll be able to help you. Yeah. Yeah, if somebody reads a book within a short term time, they can return it. I really do hate that as well. Uh, and I understand it, but I'm not a big fan of it, especially like we have some books of poetry that people have bought on Amazon and returned. Well, of course, you can get through an entire book of poetry in an hour. That's, yeah. But I mean, people could do that with print books too, so it's unfortunate. But I mean, sales are great, but getting your story out there can be more important. Especially if the person, I mean, even if the person is cheating you on the sale, they've still read your book. And who knows, maybe they liked it. Maybe they're just a person who doesn't like to have a lot of books around. Then for them, I'm like, why don't you just go to the library? Especially with tools like Overdrive now, where you can rent audiobooks from the library. Really, you can't beat that. We've gone through, my wife and I did a road trip last August where we just had 5 or 6 books on Overdrive, and we just listened to these books through the entire drive. We didn't, I had Audible as well at the time, but she was able to borrow these books from our county library, and worked well for us. So, yes, you want the sale. You'd rather to have that, but even if they're reading it, that means if they like it, or if they, God forbid, hate it, uh, that's still a feeling, and hopefully they'll leave a review, or at least maybe they'll talk fondly of it. I mean, I mentioned earlier, obviously not a lot of people watching now were watching earlier. One of the books that really broke me out into a hardcore reader was a book called Teaching Democracy by a Professor Minahan at Brown University. Who has ever heard of that book before? Yet, oh, okay. See, that's another thing. Yeah, I kind of want to be able to record the audio for my own books, but listen to my voice. It's not exactly the best. As I used to say, I have a face for radio and a voice for newspapers. So I can understand dealing with voices that aren't the best. But when I talk about Teaching Democracy, that's a book I found for $1. Oh, man, then hers must be really bad. I found Teaching Democracy for $1 at an outlet bookstore while on a road trip with my family. And it became such a huge touch point for me, because it was all about how that. Yeah, absolutely. You set it up. If you record the audio yourself, I recommend doing it in segments, usually a chapter at a time. Then you can sign up with the Audible Audio Exchange, and they'll set it up for you, and sell your book through Audible. I mean, obviously, if you're doing audio books, Audible is the king of the audiobook industry right now. But I recommend also to work with libraries too, because libraries will buy the books and then make them available on Overdrive. And you can also make them available yourself from your own website. If you really want to get good feedback on it, podcast it. Break your story up into 30-minute chunks and podcast it. Put it out once a week or once a month, and build a fan base that way. And then, but the key thing on that is only have like 5 or 6 episodes available at a time. So you read through the prologue in chapter 1, chapter 2, maybe only then you're now 6 episodes in. Then when you go to do chapter 3, all of a sudden the prologue's no longer available. So it's only for those people, hopefully you've built an audience by that point, that are people that are going to keep on listening to your story. But, and yes, it kind of cuts off people from starting at the beginning, but hopefully it'll drive them to buy your book when it's available, either as an audiobook or in print or as an ebook. There's a fair amount of success that people have had in putting their books out there, their stories out there for free, and then having people go back and pay for them later. There's been web series on YouTube that has led to stars of those web series going on to be television stars. So they start out doing stuff for free and they end up making money doing exactly the same thing. I mean, if you love performing or if you love storytelling, then really is it about the money if you really love it? I mean, my dad always said, find a job you love and never work a day in your life. I found a job I love and doesn't pay me much money, but I love it. So I'm going to keep on doing it. All right, we've gone way over time here, so we usually just try to keep this 30 minutes. So if you have any more questions for me, I'm always available on Twitter, either the official AS21 Twitter feed at aois21, or you can reach me directly at kfshovlin, SHOVLIN. You can find us at www.aois21.com, aois21.com. You can find us on Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn, pretty much any social media you can think of, we're there because that's where readers are. So we're constantly trying to reach out to all of them. I'll be back next month. We'll be talking about have another topic coming up. In fact, next month, September 21st, will be right about the time the Fall for the Book Festival here at George Mason University in Northern Virginia, in Fairfax, Virginia. So we'll hopefully be able to be talking about that. We'll also have a great number of events. During this past month, at the beginning of the month, we had end of July, we had the launch party for Hive First Contact with author James D. King. Following weekend, we had a number of events for poet Michael B. Judkins, who was down in the DC area for the weekend. And we took him around to a few bookstores and did a few events with him. We've been keeping up, updating people on our Facebook page, with our email and YouTube. Just all kinds of great stuff out there. And plus, we have a few special things. Right now, we are taking submissions for our third AS21 annual literary magazine. Poetry, short stories, essays, excerpts, photography, art, and starting this year, audio and video entries. We are now accepting. Just go to aois21.com/annual. You will see the full guidelines for submission. You have until August 31st, 10 days, 10 days, 10, 5 and 5. That's all you have left to get your submissions in for the AS21 annual. And we're doing it all electronic this year. We're going to do something really incredible in iBook Author and making this a more interactive magazine. So check that out. If you want to submit something, get it in before the end of the month. It'll be out October 1st. The following week on October 4th, we're going to be having a live reading event at Walls of Books in Washington, D.C., where people are going to be able to come out and read their poetry, read their short stories, read their essays, share their stories. We'll be broadcasting this here on our Periscope channel, and then it will be posted to our YouTube channel after. So feel free to check that out October 4th. Coming month, we'll be having an event for one of our creatives, Dr. Deepan Chatterjee, writer of the short fiction and poetry collection, The First Prophetical. The website again, go to aois21.com/annual. And that's the site for our literary magazine. This is our third edition coming out October 1st, and it's going to be all electronic. So nope, there's no fee to register. We provide editing for free, and then we'll give you a copy of it when it is done, and plus you'll get a share of the royalties for sales. that we switched to an all electronic release this year because sales really haven't been that good, and print costs get awfully high. It's really when you don't have sales really going well, we don't really do a good print one. So yeah, feel free to check out aois21.com/annual. There's a submission form there, and you click the submission form, just a quick Survey Monkey thing. You fill that out. I'll get that, and the next couple of days, if you submit, I'll email you back to get your submission. We'll have our editors and reviewers look over it. We'll be announcing who the contributors for this year's annual probably this time next month, because we announced it toward the end of September. We'll be announcing the cover art then too. And then it comes out October 1st and live readings October 4th. So, okay, my battery's dying, so it is time for me to go. Thank you for watching. This will be on our YouTube channel from now on, so you can go on and watch it. Hopefully the audio didn't cut out. Just to be safe, I might share the Periscope video onto the YouTube channel as well. But for aois21 Publishing, I am Keith F. Shovlin, Publisher and Chief Creative. Thank you for watching. If you have any more questions, tweet to us at aois21, or you can reach out to me at pub@aois21.com. Thank you very much. Have a good month and keep reading.